The Pro-National Conference has described the ongoing constitution amendment process in Nigeria as one that might be raising false hopes to suppress the popular will of Nigeria's request for a new people's constitution. CNBC Africa's Ibrahim caught up with Emmanuel Jime, chairman of the House Committee of the Federal Capital Territory, to discuss feedback from the nationwide public hearing on the ongoing constitutional review so far.
Well, first let me say that people need to understand that constitution amendment is an ongoing process. It's not an event. So in the life of a nation, you're likely going to be having situations where, the ground norm, which is the constitution, would need to be looked at from, time to time. It is important, to understand, where we're coming from. As you know, before independence, during the colonial period, up until independence, we've had several attempts at constitution making. During the military, we had dictatorships and decrees, that were ruled out by one man, very, very often. The problem we've had with constitutions in the past has been the fact that it's really been an elitist process by and large, to the extent that the ordinary Nigerian citizen could not be said to be part owner. In other words, Nigerians did not own up the process that led to the emergence of those previous constitutions. So perhaps you then have to now locate, the dynamic in what the House of Representatives decided to do with this process, which is perhaps to take it to 360 federal constituencies for the first time. And I have to say that I'm really, really impressed, with what we have been able to achieve with the process this time around, because I think we can then say for the first time that we have a constitution in place that really would be a people's-driven constitution, that ownership of that constitution can be given, to the Nigerian people.
Can you clarify what is to be considered in this constitutional review as regards state creation?
Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution, which provides for state creation, has clearly enunciated what steps may need to be taken before states can be created. It is a cumbersome, very, very difficult process to follow indeed. Therefore, the framers of the 1999 Constitution thought, in their wisdom, that going forward, for us to be able in a democracy to create states, that indeed certain stringent requirements would need to be put in place so that if we're going to create states, all segments of the Nigerian society will actually come to an agreement that there was a need for states to be created. Now, that is the procedure, that is the position that we have in the Constitution presently. Now, because we have further clamor and agitation, as at the last count, over 300 requests have been made for state creation. I thought it was necessary, and I appreciate the explanation of the Deputy Senate President. People should understand that the process that we're undertaking now is not a state creation process, nor is it really going to lead ultimately to state creation. If Nigerians go ahead and agree and tell the National Assembly that we need for a reduction, if you like, of the terms, so that it then becomes easier for states to be created, only then, and after that, can we actually then start the process of state creation. What I have seen in my experience is that the moment you have created a state to answer a minority problem, what you've done most of the times is to end up creating further minorities. So the more states you're creating, the more minorities you're getting, and the whole requirement of state creation, which is actually to bring development to the people, it's sidelined. So these are some of the problems that I see as far as state creation is concerned. But to answer your question directly, there is no obstacle to state creation in the present constitution, except that there are certain standards and requirements that needed to be met before we can create states. So we are not creating states by amending the constitution. We can only create states if the amendment to the constitution was done in such a way that we're perhaps, like I said, reducing some of the requirements that are in place at the moment.
A lot of public hearings have been conducted across the country in an effort to make the constitutional review process transparent. Do you want to take us through some of the feedbacks you got from the public hearings across the country?
Fantastic. Like I said, especially I can speak for the House of Representatives and the fact that we in 360 constituencies, we all went out back to our constituencies and organized these town hall meetings where constituents came out in their huge numbers and actively participated in the process. And let me just make a true confession here. There were certain decisions that were taken that even I, with all due humility, would not have been able to fathom in the way that what appears to be ordinary Nigerian citizens were able to, appreciate. What I'm saying is that the level of appreciation of the issues in Nigeria, make no mistake about it, is at such an astronomical level, that whatever is it that you actually want to get out of the Nigerian people, when you do a transparent process, you're able to get, that out of them. So some of the things that I can, at the top of my head, refer to is one of the very key areas in our national development is perhaps, the autonomy, if you like, and the independence that we need to bring to the third tier of governance, the local government. As you know, that's the smallest unit, and that's perhaps also the unit that is closest to the most majority of Nigerians. But finally, for me, I think what is critical in appreciating, this constitutional amendment process, like I said, is the transparency with which this whole setup was organized.